All right, buckle up, everyone. Welcome to another deep dive. And this time, we're setting our sights on a real classic of the Formula One calendar. It's time to get ready for the 2025 Formula One Canadian Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's always a great race. We've gathered quite a stack of material for this one, actually, pulled from various sources covering pretty much everything you need to know for the race weekend.
Like what specifically?
Well, we've got the full schedule, naturally, how to tune in depending on where you are, the history and the specific challenges of the circuit itself,
Okay.
and also a look at where things stand in what's turning out to be a fascinating championship battle this season.
Right. So our mission today, like always, is to cut through all that info. We're going to try and pull out the most crucial bits of knowledge, the insights, basically get you completely up to speed.
Mm-hmm.
We'll figure out those must-know timings for you, highlight the best ways to watch, and give you that essential backstory and current context that makes this race, well, so compelling. Think of it as your shortcut to being race ready.
Sounds good. So let's dive right into the nuts and bolts, the session times. The official local time in Montreal, that's where all the action happens, is GMT -4.
Okay, GMT4.
And our sources have, thankfully, done a great job translating those times for audiences all over the world. We have these detailed lists covering, like, loads of regions.
Which is super helpful. And instead of just, reading out every single time for every zone, which would take ages, and you can find those complete lists in the resources we'll link to. Let's maybe hit the highlights. Give people a feel for when the key moments are happening in different parts of the world.
Very good idea.
Let's start with the Americas. That covers a huge area, right? West Coast, U.S., Canada, all the way through Central and South America. The times there seem generally pretty good.
They really are quite convenient for many. So for folks on Pacific time, think Las Vegas, West Coast US, West Coast Canada. The race itself, Sunday, June 15th, starts at 11 a.m.
Okay, 11 a.m. start.
Move east to the central zones, like Mexico City or central US Canada. That bumps up to 12 p.m. midday. Then on the East Coast, Miami, East US Canada, and Montreal itself, of course, the race gets underway at 1:00 p.m.
Makes sense.
And then if you go further south, places like Buenos Aires, that's GMT -3, you're looking at 3:00 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. The sources actually make a point of saying how comfortable these sort of afternoon, early evening times are for a lot of Latin American viewers.
Yeah, much better than some of the really early morning European races sometimes.
Exactly.
Okay, so shifting across the Atlantic now. Europe, Africa, the Middle East. The timings here are, the sources say, very different hours compared to the usual European race starts.
They definitely are. Evening viewing for most. So if you're in the UK or Portugal, that's GMT +1. The race on Sunday kicks off at 7:00 p.m.
7 in the evening, okay.
Central European time, that's Madrid, Paris, Berlin, GMT +2. It's an 8:00 p.m. start.
Later still.
And then you go further east, places like Sakir, GMT +3, or Baku, GMT +4. You're looking at 9:00 p.m. and 10:00 p.m. starts, respectively.
Wow, that's late.
Yeah, and qualifying on Saturday is around similar times in the late evening, so definitely be ready for some evening or, maybe even late night F1, depending on exactly where you are in those regions.
Okay, and then we head even further east. Asia and Oceania. The time difference there means the race often tips over into Monday morning, right?
Correct. Yeah, the race is officially Sunday, June 15th in Montreal.
Yeah.
But for many in Asia and Oceania, it'll actually be Monday, June 16th when they watch it live.
Right. Give us some examples.
Okay, so Singapore, GMT +8. The start time is 2:00 a.m. on Monday morning.
Oof, early start.
Tokyo, GMT +9 is 3:00 a.m. Sydney. GMT +10, that's 4:00 a.m. Monday. And Auckland, all the way over at GMT +12, they're looking at a 6:00 a.m. start on Monday morning.
Okay.
And for places like Mumbai, which is GMT +5:30, the race is actually quite late on Sunday night itself, 11:30 p.m.
Right. So the big takeaway here is wherever you are listening from, the sources we looked at provide really precise times. Free practice, quali, the race across dozens of specific zones.
Absolutely.
And we'll make sure you have access to those full lists so you can just pinpoint exactly when the lights go out for you.
Knowing when is one thing, knowing how to watch is just as important. And our sources also detail the broadcast options region by region.
Right. Let's talk about that. For viewers in Spain, the sources seem clear. DAZN F1 is the only way to watch it.
That's what they say, yes. Exclusive broadcaster. And they highlight the coverage start times, too, for qualifying. The broadcast begins an hour before, so 9:00 p.m. local time Saturday. And for the race on Sunday, they've got a big 2-hour pre-show starting at 4 p.m. before the actual race start at 8:00 p.m. local Spanish time.
2 hours pre-race, wow.
Yeah, and they even named the commentary team you'll hear. Antonio Lobato, Tony Cucurella, and Pedro de la Rosa, familiar voices for Spanish viewers.
Okay, what about Latin America?
Well, the sources mention F1 TV as an option there. It's paid, English language commentary, and importantly, it's not available in Spain, so that's one difference.
Gotcha. F1 TV for LATAM, but not Spain, and specific countries.
Yeah, beyond F1 TV, specific countries have their dedicated broadcasters. In Mexico, the sources point to Fox Sports Mexico, or their premium service, Fox Sports Premium.
Okay.
And then for a big chunk of the region, Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Chile, and a whole list of others mentioned in the sources.
Like Costa Rica, Panama, Ecuador.
Exactly. Places like El Salvador, Venezuela, Bolivia, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Uruguay, Paraguay, too. The coverage is on ESPN, which you can get through Disney Plus Premium.
Right. ESPN via Disney Plus Premium seems to cover a lot of ground.
It does. And the sources specifically mention the ESPN Latin America commentary team you'd likely hear in Argentina: Fernando Tornello, Juan Fasaroli, and Juan Manuel Lopez.
Good info. And if you just want the live data.
Yes. Motorsport.com is highlighted for providing live timing and sort of direct text updates for all the sessions. That's always a great resource if you maybe can't watch live or you just like following the numbers closely.
Definitely. So again, check those linked resources for the full broadcast breakdown for your specific country.
Okay, logistics covered. Timings, check. Viewing options, check. Now let's shift focus. Let's talk about the stage for all this action. The Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. This place, it really has character, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Such a unique venue. It first joined the F1 calendar way back in 1978, taking over from Mosport Park.
Mm-hmm.
And it got its current, very famous name in the early 80s, right? As a tribute to the Canadian legend Gilles Villeneuve after he tragically died in 82.
That's right. And it's located on Notre Dame Island, right there in Montreal. It gives it this really unique sort of urban park setting. You don't see many tracks like it.
The sources describe it as a semi-permanent circuit. What does that actually mean for the drivers in the racing?
Well, it means parts of the track are actually public roads for a lot of the year. It's not like a purpose-built, dedicated race facility all year round.
Oh, okay.
And that gives it that particular feel, you know. The walls are often very close in certain sections, much like a traditional street circuit like Monaco or Baku. It adds this immediate consequence for even tiny errors.
No room for mistakes.
Pretty much. The layout itself is 4.361 kilometers long. It has 14 corners a mix, 8 right-handers and 6 left-handers.
And you just cannot talk about this track without mentioning that wall.
The infamous Wall of Champions, yes.
Yeah.
It's right on the exit of the final chicane, just before the start-finish straight. It's just this concrete barrier that has caught out some of the absolute biggest names in F1 history.
Often ending their race right there.
Yeah, sometimes on the final lap or two, it just really highlights the kind of demanding precision you need right up until you cross the finish line. No letting up.
So looking at the layout overall, the sources mention it runs clockwise, and it's characterized by these long straights, broken up by a tight hairpin and several slow to medium speed chicanes. What kind of mix is that? What does it demand from the cars and drivers?
That combination, it makes it a real test of compromise for the setup. The long straights, especially the one before the hairpin and the one before the final chicane, they really emphasize the need for good straight line speed.
Right, low drag.
Exactly. And efficient DRS use for overtakes is key there. But then those slow chicanes and the hairpin itself, they demand really strong braking stability going in and then good traction coming out of the corners to get back up to speed quickly.
It's a trade-off.
It's a real trade-off between top speed for the straights and cornering performance for those slower sections. Teams have to balance that setup really carefully. Oh, and a little detail from the sources, pole position is actually on the left side of the track here.
Interesting. Okay. And the race distance is 70 laps.
70 laps, yeah. Covers 305.270 kilometers. The sources note it usually takes around, say, 1 hour and 30 minutes to complete.
But it can go longer.
It can, yeah. They mentioned the 2024 race ran a bit longer, about 1 hour, 45 minutes. That can happen, you know, if there are safety cars, red flags, weather, other interruptions.
Sure. Now, given its long history on the calendar, it's been held 53 times in total, right?
That's the count, 53 editions.
The winners list at this specific circuit must feature some absolute legends.
Oh, absolutely. And two drivers stand right at the top, tied with an incredible 7 victories each, specifically here at the circuit: Gilles Villeneuve, Michael Schumacher, and Lewis Hamilton.
7 wins each. That's remarkable. Just shows how well they mastered this place.
It really does. Looking at the current grid, Max Verstappen is rapidly climbing that list. He's won the last 3 races here, 2022, 2023, 2024. That puts him alongside Nelson Piquet with 3 wins at this track.
Okay, 3 in a row is impressive form here.
And Fernando Alonso is another driver on the current grid who's tasted victory in Montreal, although that was way back in 2006.
Right, 2006. And pole positions, does that tell a similar story?
Pretty much, yeah. Dominance at the top again. Hamilton and Schumacher are also tied for the most poles here with 6 each.
6 poles each as well. Incredible.
Verstappen has taken pole twice in 2022 and 2023, and Alonso, he got pole back in his winning year, 2006.
And we should probably mention George Russell's pole here in 2024, shouldn't we?
Definitely worth recalling that one. The sources highlighted it. He set an absolutely identical lap time to Verstappen in Q3.
To the thousandth of a second.
Exactly. But Russell got pole because he set his identical time earlier in the session. It just shows how incredibly fine the margins can be around this particular track.
Amazing. Okay, so we know the stage, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. We know its history, who's done well there. Let's zoom out now and place this upcoming race within the context of the 2025 Formula One season as it stands right now. 9 rounds are completed so far, is that right? Including 2 sprint races.
That's correct. 9 rounds down.
And the picture at the top of the standings is, well, quite different from what many might have expected maybe before the season started.
It certainly is. The sources we looked at indicate that Oscar Piastri, driving for McLaren, is currently leading the Drivers' Championship. He's on 186 points.
Piastri leading. And his teammate, Lando Norris, he's right up there with him.
Right behind him, yeah. Norris is second with 176 points. That's just 10 points separating the 2 McLaren drivers.
Wow, only 10 points.
Yeah, the sources really paint a clear picture of McLaren's strong performance so far this year. They seem to be the team to beat right now.
And where does that leave Max Verstappen? How's he fitting into this after his recent races?
Well, according to the sources, Max Verstappen is sitting 3rd in the standings for Red Bull Racing. He's got 137 points.
Okay, 3rd.
And they do note he's, the phrase used was somewhat more distanced from the lead now, especially after a setback they mentioned in Barcelona. That puts him 49 points behind Piastri.
49 points. That's, well, it's not insurmountable, obviously, but it's a decent gap. Certainly shifts the dynamic we've kind of gotten used to in recent seasons.
Absolutely. It makes things much more interesting, potentially.
The sources also give a quick snapshot of some other drivers further down, right? Just mentioning points for guys like Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton.
Yeah, they list points for Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton, Antonelli, Albon, Stroll, Sainz, Alonso. Just gives you a feel for that packed midfield and upper midfield battle as well.
Right. And that picture, the McLaren dominance and the fight behind, is that reflected even more clearly in the Constructors' Championship?
Oh, absolutely. McLaren F1 is currently leading that and leading it comfortably with 362 points.
362 points already.
Yeah, and the sources explicitly state they are on track for a 2nd consecutive title. That's how strong their position looks right now.
But behind them, it sounds like there's a real scrap going on for 2nd place.
There really is. The sources highlight an intense fight for 2nd place. Currently, Ferrari is holding that spot with 165 points.
Okay, Ferrari 2nd.
But Mercedes is right on their tail, just 6 points behind on 159 points. And Red Bull Racing isn't far off either. They're in 4th with 144 points.
So Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull all clustered together.
Exactly. That 3-way battle for, best of the rest, essentially, in the constructor standings adds a whole other layer of significant intrigue, quite apart from what McLaren's doing out front.
Definitely something to watch. Okay, so to kind of bring this deep dive towards a close, we've basically armed you with the essentials, haven't we?
I think so.
Knowing exactly when the sessions are happening for you, no matter your time zone, having the rundown on how you can actually tune in, depending on where you live.
Understanding the track itself, that demanding wall-lined character, and the rich history of the circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
And setting the scene with the current championship picture. McLaren's strong form, Piastri leading Norris, Verstappen chasing, and that tight battle behind McLaren in the constructors.
Yeah, we've tried to pull the key insights from all those sources to really get you ready to follow the action this weekend.
Which leaves us with maybe just this final thought, something
Yeah.
for you to ponder as we look ahead to the Canadian Grand Prix weekend itself.
Right.
Given McLaren's apparent dominance this season, and maybe Verstappen's recent struggles according to our sources, will the unique challenges, the unforgiving nature of the circuit Gilles Villeneuve, a track that's famous for producing unpredictable races and catching out even champions at the Wall of Champions, will that create another twist in this championship narrative? Or will the current form we're seeing simply prevail, even on this really demanding, tricky, semi-permanent layout?
That's the big question, isn't it? Will Montreal shake things up again? We'll have to wait and see.